Guys, please do subscribe to our channel and support us. Let's be honest for a second. What's the most awkward moment in a conversation? Not saying the wrong thing, not running out of things to say. It's this: standing in front of someone who clearly knows you, smiling, and realizing you have no idea what their name is. And now you're stuck. You can't ask again. You can't pretend forever. So you start doing that thing, nodding a little too much, avoiding their name completely, hoping, desperately, that someone else says it first. And in those few seconds, you feel embarrassed, maybe even a little guilty, because it feels like you should remember. Like forgetting someone's name means you didn't care enough. But here's something that might completely change how you see this. Forgetting names is not a sign that you're rude. It's not a sign that you're careless. And it definitely doesn't mean you're bad with people. In fact, it often means your brain is doing something else, something far more interesting. Because think about what's actually happening. When you meet someone new, you're not just listening to their name. Your brain is working overtime. You're reading their facial expressions, noticing their tone, trying to understand who they are. At the same time, you're thinking about yourself. Am I being awkward? Am I saying the right thing? Do they like me? Your mind is juggling everything at once. And right in the middle of all that, they say their name. Just one word. No context. No meaning. No connection. And your brain? It drops it. Not because it's unimportant, but because it doesn't stick. Now here's where it gets interesting. Your brain doesn't remember everything equally. It prioritizes. It holds on to things that feel meaningful and lets go of things that don't. That's why you can remember exactly how someone made you feel, but not what they were called. Because feelings create connections. Names don't. A name by itself is just a label. It doesn't tell you anything about the person. It doesn't create an image. It doesn't trigger emotion. So your brain treats it like background noise and moves on. Now think about this. You might forget someone's name, but remember the way they laughed, the story they told, the energy they brought into the room. That's not bad memory. That's selective memory. And it's actually how your brain is supposed to work. But here's where it gets more personal. For a lot of people who struggle with remembering names, it's not just about memory. It's about attention, or more specifically, where your attention is going in that moment. Because while someone is introducing themselves, you might already be thinking ahead. What should I say next? How do I keep this conversation going? Don't mess this up. And without realizing it, you're not fully present. There's even a psychological pattern where people remember less when they're focused on what they're about to say next. So the name comes in, and your mind just skips over it. Not because you don't care, but because you're trying to manage everything else. And if you've ever felt anxious in social situations, this probably hits even harder. Because your brain isn't just listening. It's performing, analyzing, overthinking. And in that mental noise, small details disappear. Like names. Now here's something important to understand. This doesn't mean you're bad with people. In fact, it often means the opposite. People who forget names easily are often deeply focused on the experience itself. They remember emotions, moments, details that actually matter. They're tuned into the person, not just the label. And that's a different kind of awareness. But here's the part most people don't talk about. The guilt. Because even if there's a reason for it, it still feels bad. It feels like you're sending a message you don't mean. You didn't matter enough to remember. And that's what makes it uncomfortable, even if it's not true. And that's the part that lingers. Not the awkward moment, not the misname, but the feeling that you might have made someone feel unimportant. Because even if you didn't mean it, it can land that way. But here's the truth most people never stop to consider. Memory isn't a recording. It's a filter. Your brain isn't designed to store everything. It's designed to store what feels meaningful, what stands out, what connects. So when you forget a name, it doesn't mean you didn't value the person. It just means your brain didn't have anything to attach that name to. No story, no image, no emotional anchor. It just floated, and your brain let it go. But here's something that might surprise you. People who struggle with names often remember everything else. The conversation, the tone, the exact moment something shifted. They remember how someone made them feel, even years later, because their memory isn't built on labels. It's built on experience. And that's not a weakness. That's a different kind of intelligence. Now let's talk about something deeper. Because for some people, this isn't just about memory. It's about being stuck in their own head. Not in a selfish way. In an aware way. A careful way. A don't mess this up kind of way. You're thinking about your posture, your words, your reactions. You're trying to show up well. And in doing that, you lose presence. You're physically there. But mentally, you're slightly ahead of the moment. And when you're not fully in the moment, details slip, names slip, because your brain is busy trying to manage everything else. Now here's the reframe that changes everything. You don't have a bad memory. You have a distracted one. And distraction isn't about carelessness. It's about overload. Too many things happening at once. Too many thoughts competing for attention. And your brain just chooses what feels most important in that moment. Now let's shift perspective for a second. Because if you've ever had your name forgotten, you know how it feels. It can sting, even if it's small. Even if you understand it logically. It still feels like, I didn't matter enough. But here's what's actually happening. The person who forgot your name probably remembers you. Just not your name. They might remember your story, your personality, something you said that stuck with them. They were there. They were engaged. Just not with that one detail. And that matters. Because connection isn't built on names. It's built on experience, on presence, on how you make someone feel. Now here's where things become practical. Because even though this is normal, there are ways to make it easier. Simple things, like repeating someone's name when you first hear it, or connecting it to something familiar. Not because your brain naturally does it, but because you're helping it create that connection. You're giving the name something to stick to. And that's all memory really needs. A reason to hold on. But more important than techniques is this. Let go of the shame. Because that quiet belief, that forgetting names makes you a bad person. That part? It's not true. You're not dismissive. You're not uninterested. You're just wired to notice different things. To prioritize meaning over labels. Experience over surface details. And in a world where most people barely listen at all, that's not a flaw. That's depth. So the next time you forget someone's name, don't panic. Don't spiral. Just be human about it. Ask again. Smile. Move forward. Because the truth is, people remember how you treat them, far more than whether you remembered their name the first time. And if you show up with genuine attention, real presence, that's what stays. That's what matters. If this video made you feel understood or helped you see yourself differently, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, are you someone who remembers faces and stories, but forgets names? You're definitely not the only one. Thanks for watching.